Hello and welcome everybody. You're about to watch a drum clinic by James Stewart from Decapitated and Belphegor. James played some songs and did some Q&A. If you like to attend one of our clinics yourself, make sure to follow us on Facebook and on Instagram. Enjoy the video.
For a warm-up and a sound check. And you know the drill. I'm going to play some stuff. You're going to ask me some questions. I'm going to play some more stuff, more questions. And, you know, eventually we'll all go home. Yeah? Cool.
Thank you everybody for coming again. Please welcome James Stewart from Decapitated. He's gonna.
It's a bit late for that, mate.
We can edit that later on. But let's welcome James, and he just played what is Cult of
Kill the Cult.
Kill the Cult, and you take it. It's all yours.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So, you know, I'm from a death metal band and everything, so why don't I play a song that is really going to make me struggle? Oh boy. Because,
Oh boy.
I'm just going to move this around under the ride.
You might get some bleeding from the top.
I don't care. I always feel like I'm going to hit it.
What was that song?
That song is called Suicidal Space Program. All of the songs on the new album have like really annoyingly long titles. SSP. For you and me. Right. If you've got access to a click, I would recommend you turn it on because it's pretty fucked up and it's worth listening to. Some of you might know that we were touring the album Nihility in the States just now, and that was recorded without a click track. And when we came to do these shows over the last couple of years, we had to put everything to a click. And it's pretty mad. So there's a lot of, it's not just that it wasn't recorded to a click, it's that it was deliberately extremely technical and complicated. So there's a lot of speeding up and slowing down and all this crazy shit, and there could well be some interesting mistakes tonight. So that's always fun. But yeah, if you've got access, I would really recommend you turn up the click track and check this out, because it's definitely one of those moments in the show where all of us look at each other and just give ourselves a quick Hail Mary. So, check it out.
I think I'm on that one. I'm going to do this in a second.
This one's also pretty fucked. But why not? Any questions? No? Good.
Hell yeah.
Cool. Any questions at all? Anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to know?
What do you do to get more articulate with your feet, man? Like, because your articulation is fucking insane on your feet. Like, what was your technique to get to that point?
I think, the main thing is like I've toured these songs now to death.
Yeah.
So that makes life a hell of a lot easier because, nothing beats repetition for
Without doubt.
any of the, I mean, that's practice is just pretty much is repetition. The only thing is you've got to watch out to make sure that you don't repeat your
Bad
mistakes.
mistakes. Yeah, that happens.
But essentially, it is just repetition. That's why I'm going to stop repeating myself. As it
Same
were.
repetition, repeating.
Yeah.
I noticed you do the swivel technique.
Yeah, that's something that just happens naturally. Like, it's not something I really take too much notice of, to be honest.
Okay, fair.
It's more, partly it's about keeping time. So if I'm doing a blast beat, you know, don't worry. You don't have to reach for the headphones too much, right? If I swivel outwards first, then I kind of know where I am in the beat. So it's more like a way of counting my strokes. So I can be, like, at least in the mid-speed stuff, I can be sure that I'm hitting the correct number of notes, you know.
That's fair.
But mostly it's ankle technique. It's still ankle technique, but I'm just moving my leg around. I think, you know, the first time I saw it was Gene Hoglan in the Strapping Young Lad video for Love. That was the first time I saw some huge dude in boots just fucking shredding through this song, you know, and like there's some leg cam, you just like kind of spaghetti motion. You're like, what is that? How is that working? And after a while, I just sort of started doing it. It helps me stay loose. So I wouldn't say for me it's a technique. It's probably a habit.
Okay, fair.
Right, so it's probably something I shouldn't be doing. So, but am anyway, and it, especially in like really fast sections, it sort of helps. I'm not counting my notes anymore. I'm just leaning into this swivel thing and just going like I'm probably not getting the right number of notes. I'm just like, just get as many as you can and hope for the best, you know. But you know, it helps me, and it helps me kind of stay loose. So I guess it's working. I don't know. I'm probably not the one to
So
say
pretty fucking
it's
solid
right.
to me, man. I mean, my first question was about articulation, and then it
But
sounded fucking great.
But it's certainly something that I find helpful. Anything else?
On that note, staying loose, you know.
Staying loose.
Talk a bit more about that, because you and I were talking a bit before.
Yes, yeah.
It's one of the key things.
Yes, one of these this totally unrehearsed moment right now. I mean, I think staying loose mostly is about your lower back. That's where I sort of think looseness is coming from, because
Like not leaning forward, you mean?
like, but staying, like, keeping your lower back like really. I mean, I try and keep my back as straight as I can. I don't know if I succeed in doing that, but what I've noticed is when I start struggling, you know, if you're having a bad gig, you know, instead of like the times, because I'm leaning in, like I'm tired. When actually, you know, once I know, if I notice during a show, like, actually, you know what, I'm really struggling tonight, then the first thing I'll check is my back, and 9 times out of 10, or probably 99 times out of 100, I'm sitting wrong.
Sitting.
So I try, normally my back position's off. Immediately you can breathe better, like immediately. You should try it at home, right? Try and play like, you know, something simple. And then try and do it again. And you'll notice an immediate difference, not just in your accuracy, but in the sound that you're getting. So I think part one to recognize is, it might not be a leg, or, you know, it might not be a technique problem. It might literally just be a back problem.
Is that why you sit so high, or?
I mean, I'm not sitting crazy high. I'm sitting at roughly about my leg height, or my knee height. Which, no, I haven't looked anything over, it's good. which helps, which has always just seemed to work. Like that's the thing I check whenever I'm on festival drum kits or drum kits that aren't mine. I'll put the height somewhere around there, and I know I'm probably good. But I don't think it's super high. But I definitely don't sit low. I do. What I was told quite a long time ago is that most metal drummers, especially, they tend to have their snare drums quite too low, quite a lot too low. And he taught a good trick for that. To counter that is kind of imagine your perfect drum kit. Let's say like away from the drums, but close your eyes and you just imagine your drum set, right? Your ideal setup, all right? And then you just hit the snare on this setup. So right there, come over here and look at that. You know, it's already so I should probably be a little bit higher. You know, so I started with that with the snare drum.
Okay.
And then, you know, if I'm sitting down here, the snare drum's going to be up here somewhere, isn't it? So I start with my kick position. My kick is slightly close. I'm on a twin today, so my kick is slightly further in this way than it should be. But I start with setting up the kicks, and I just sort of let my feet fall where they're naturally kind of where they want to go, and I put the kicks there. Then I set the snare, and then I set everything else around that. So.
Well, you usually mark everything, right?
Yeah, but I'm not on my drums today. So I'm on a kit that Joey has provided for us. but this is my drum rack. So the setting is more or less where it should be, but yeah, that's how I get a kind of indicator of where everything should be for me, where I think it is. It's really worth checking at home, this sort of invisible snare drum thing, and because you might surprise yourself. Like the first time I did it, the snare was the difference was was massive, and it's a kind of a good indicator of where you should have your snare drum, and also where your brain thinks your snare drum is. So yeah, in around that's why I have my snare height and my seat height the way they are. They're related to each other.
Makes sense.
And I never really thought about kicks too much when I was setting up my seat height either. Like that it's always just sort of been around. It's always felt.
I just wonder if the high.
I think the angle is more important.
Relax.
I think the angle is a bit more important than the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think. I don't remember who said it, but might even have been Dave Weckl, when he was talking about maybe just single foot, but he was talking about an obtuse angle. I think it's him, I'm not sure. It's like some video that I've half remembered from, when I was like.
But he also doesn't play.
No, but he still is everything is, he's set up his kit specifically where it should be, and I might be wrong. It might not be Weckl. It might have been Terry Boswick, but it was an 80s fusion guy with crazy hair. That's all I remember. Right.
There's only 500 of those.
Yeah. Right. One of those fusion guys from back in the days when if you didn't have good hair, you were a terrible drummer. But anyway, I mean, so I'm more thinking about this, and I definitely notice if I sit too close. I'm here. Crushing my legs, and I feel like this is really uncomfortable. So I'm back here somewhere, and that just gives me whatever it is I need to do my thing. So I couldn't tell you if it's right or wrong, but it certainly works for me. Yeah, and it's a nice thing to don't get obsessed with it, but check it out and see. Do you prefer like a more.
Dude, I play like Lars is my next legs are like this. So I wonder if that's started.
I mean, it's what it's going to the classic power player is Lombardo, who's on the floor.
Yeah.
It's drums up here and.
Yeah.
But it's not affecting his kicks. He's still flying.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
He's no slouch. So, but he has always got the bolt upright back, you know. There's a video going around somewhere on Instagram at the moment, like about drummers and posture and stuff, and like if you have a low seat, you automatically have bad posture or something like that. And it's bullshit. You know, he's just sitting low down, but with bad posture. Bad posture is bad posture at in a high seat, in a medium seat.
That's right.
Posture and seat height are not related. Posture is something that you control yourself.
But I feel when you're higher and your legs, you're pushing forward, your hands are forward, your legs are going forward, and you are on a higher seat, it's way easier for your weight to shift forward. You know what I mean? Even if you're sitting on the center of the
The key thing here is control.
Yeah.
So like whatever seat height you have, you've got to make sure like that you're not you've got to try at least to make sure you're not leaning forward and not leaning back too much. And you know, with blast beats and this kind of fast stuff, you're putting your body under strain. You know, like so most of us will lean in forward. And Derek Roddy has his snare angled away from him because he knows that when he's blasting, he's going to lean in.
Oh, that makes sense.
But so like most of us, when we're under strain, we will, without thinking about it, lean in or lean back, or you do something that you're not controlling. For me, I've broken a back tooth from biting down too hard.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not. Yeah. Not great. But
During a show?
no.
Fortunately.
Or maybe I don't remember. I just remember blasting and being like, this tastes like tooth. But you know, you're all going to do. If you're like pushing yourself, you're always going to be kind of under strain, and that's when you do stupid things. Like it might be leaning forward, it might be in my case, you know, gritting your teeth, whatever it is. You know.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, can you talk about your left hand technique, especially while blasting, and also what's the technique relationship between the technique and then the tension of your drum head?
Tension of the drum head doesn't really matter too much. This is where I completely fuck it up. I don't, you know, tension helps, of course, but for the purposes of this, I will. Tension of the head isn't the most important thing.
Even for somebody who's trying to I felt like it's if you can't hit certain speeds at some point, it kind of helps if you have a little bit more rebound. And then but eventually, if you get
it does, but then I found that also like having the snare too tight to be just as painful. In fact, quite damaging. Like I feel it in my wrist, you know, like after a few songs. If you're really laying into the drum and it's really tight, then you end up with like, you know, you feel like you really feel it after like 1-2 songs. But right, I'm cheating a little bit because I am actually left-handed. Right, so my left hand technique, or my hand technique in general, is not anything you haven't seen a million times before, but mostly I'm focused on wrist, yeah?
Okay.
My left hand technique and my right hand technique, as far as I know, are pretty much the same. But the main thing is like I've been practicing mostly with wrists. So I warm up every day before the show. And I start warming up with right? Because whether you use predominantly fingers or predominantly wrists, you're still going to be using both. The other thing I try and make sure is that I am loose in the triceps, right? So in British English, I've already told Derek this before, but we're kind of, they're like these fat old ladies that play bingo, right? They're called the bingo wings, right? So I kind of try and imagine these really loose triceps. I want to be loose up here, yeah? Because for me, the first thing to go always when I was struggling was the triceps. I'd lock up right here.
100%. The forearm tricep, right away they lock together.
Yeah. So that for me was always where I lock up first, and then once that happens, it's pretty much game over. I don't know if that's happened to you, but it's happened to me and it sucks.
Yeah.
And I had to learn really not to focus on like slamming down. I'm not putting a lot of downward force into my blast.
Okay.
Right? I'm mostly thinking about lifting up. Because, you know what, if I drop the stick, it's going down. I don't need to push it down. I just need to lift it back up. If I push it down and lift it back up, I'm doing twice the work. In theory. Right, so I'm focused. This upstroke, which is giving me the benefit of having quite a good stick height. So when the stick comes down again, I've got this like, I think quite a good snare tone for a blast beat, and you know, and I'm not really working harder. I'm working maybe a bit smarter, but basically I'm just focusing on lifting up, keeping loose here, and checking my back again. Right? Again, if like keeping the back straight. I felt myself leaning in just a little bit then as I was demonstrating it. It already felt more difficult. So it's always something you want to keep in check. And then you'll find that you're not relying on the snare too much for the rebound, and you're actually focusing on what sounds you're getting out of the snare drum. This for me sounds alright, it's a little bit on the low side. I'm just going to give it a little tune up, but not back to where it was. Right? And then I'll try and play a blasty song on it to give you an idea of what left hand is up to. All right. Disclaimer: I haven't played this song in ages. All right. All right. Let's go. So yeah, it's kind of, it's not super related to the snare tension.
Yeah.
I can feel that it's like a little bit lower, but I'm not fighting the snare still. Like it's still totally okay. Yeah.
And at the same time, your finger, even though like you're using wrist, your finger is like staying loose, right?
Yeah, it's all working together.
Okay.
It's not one or the other. It's both. It's always both. It just depends on which, you choose the percentage. It's up to you. It's up to how your body works, whatever works for you. But it's never like, I've never seen anyone play only fingers, right? Except maybe like a timpani, like a timpani roll, but that's it. So in the real world, you use your whole arm, so even like, the shoulders are in there, everything's. Everything is working together. It's just all about the proportions of what's right for you,
Gotcha.
But yeah, don't neglect the fingers or wrists. Just that's why the warm-up routine is about both. And you'll get to a point where you find it. You'll find this kind of point where you're like, this is the one. This is like where it works. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have any like routines that you, if you don't have time, or let's say you only have 2 hours a day?
Mate, I don't even have 2 hours a day. I wish I had 2 hours a day. So yeah, if I'm on a time limit, so like every day, if I have a break from touring at the moment, I'd rest. Like
Don't play at all?
If I have a chance to have a day without playing, I just finished a 5-week tour and I'm here playing for you guys. You know what I mean? Like tomorrow, I've got a plane trip, so that means I'm on like playing lockdown until I go home and then have like rehearsals for the next tour. So it's definitely like kind of one of these things that's been popularized, like dedication, yeah. But sometimes you just need to take a break. Like energy is finite, and some days as well. Have you ever had a practice session where you are not in the mood, and you push through it anyway, and it's still horrible?
Yeah.
Right? You come away absolutely hating the instrument. And that's probably I would say that might well be the one kind of cardinal sin of this, like pushing yourself and coming away hating it's a really horrible feeling. So you know what, if you have those days where you're not feeling it, just take a break. And saying, if you're coming back from a tour, or if you actually have a chance to rest yourself, like I used to have a blanket rule of no practicing on Sundays, for example. Like if I was home for a long period of time and would practice a bit more, then I would still find that time to just, one day off a week. Right, nothing is going to happen if you take a day off. But that being said, you do have to maintain all this stuff, and you do need to, while you do need to take time off here and there, there are things that I do most days, like sometimes even reminding myself of my technique without holding the stick, right? So sometimes before a show, I'll just be doing this. That's what it feels like, getting used to the feeling, trying to stay loose here. So it kind of looks like I'm revving a motorbike, but a very wobbly one, I suppose. But so it might be something as simple as that. Most of the time I've got shows these days, so I'm working on the basics, always the basics, just singles. And when I warm up my feet, I warm up feet on the floor, because I think that if you can play it on the floor like this, heel down, you can play it on any pedal. You can play it on anything, Fuck it, if you're really stuck, just put some triggers on the floor and play on them. So I don't use a lot of kick pads. I used to, like religiously, but then you have to travel with them and they get lost and they get damaged and they creep across the backstage room floor. They annoy everyone within a 5-mile radius. And they just after like 2 or 3 tours, they just become such a hassle. So I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to warm up on the floor. And then you feel the burn in your ankles, and actually you get a lot more out of it. And you get into the pedals, you're like, got some resistance now. Right. It's the same, if you can play just like that, guess what? When you pick up the sticks, you're probably going to be fine. So it can be things really even as simple as that, but always the basics. So singles, and I'm normally working on my doubles a little bit because I find them easier to warm up with. Sit there on the pad for a couple of minutes, and the first thing I'll normally do is just double. Why? Because I like them, and that's it. All right, but then we go on and on and on about singles in metal. We don't really focus on doubles. I'm not a big fan of using them in fills or in I'm not a big fan of replacing. I don't want to. I mean, it's not the same. Even if you've got really good doubles, for me, it's just not. I want to. I'm into the. It's just better. It's just more metal, and that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? But I love doubles, and I think they're really good on the high. So I do sneak in some doubles here and there, but they're not my go-to. But they're really nice to warm up with, and if you've got your good snap motion, it's a really helpful. It's a really helpful technique because you've got your wrists and your fingers all working together. I can show you up here maybe. Just so we're all on the same page. And that's everything working together. So it's also kind of good if you've got your fingers and your wrists like warm and in check, then that's a good way of just kind of checking that you've got everything working together and you're not fighting yourself somewhere. Because I've seen a lot of people play doubles and they start off like that and then they end up kind of getting the open close thing wrong. Actually sort of hit it twice. And then the last thing I do is I just check that I'm keeping my little finger on the stick at all times. Because a lot of people lift off. It's really easy to do, the British, the lady's finger, And there's a huge difference if you remove this, So that's really, I'm looking really whenever I'm kind of just looking at the basic stuff or when I've only got a few minutes. I'm making sure that I'm looking for holes in the basics and trying to fix any of those things. And then when I go for the show the next day or when I go back on the road, that stuff's all in check. And so I think you can do a lot worse than just really looking in depth at the basics.
That's good.
Yeah, it's quite a roundabout answer, but we got there.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Any other? But you had your hand up.
Oh yeah, but you kind of answered it.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll talk forever. Anybody else?
So you talked about the mental aspect a little bit. We talked about that too, but whether you're touring drummer or not, what importance does the mental aspect play in keeping yourself in check, keeping your motivation going?
I mean, I really do think making sure that you don't come away hating it after we touched on that just now. like it's got to be fun, isn't it? Like I forget that sometimes as well. As soon as once you start earning money and you have to do it, you do sometimes forget that that it's supposed to be fun. Because this thing that you do love doing also becomes a massive source of stress, and you worry about the longer you do it for, the harder it is to get a real job. And those pressures do add up. I think everyone who has been a professional drummer is at some point worried about paying the rent, and that is it's a huge mental burden, and it really can put you off playing.
I'm sure he's doing fine.
That's because you're not old enough to know about Ben C.
Yeah, right. He's
earned his wages now, right? But it's years. There can be really long times where you're really stressed about keeping a roof over your head, or or you're having to make really crazy sacrifices, and it is a mental burden. And you do it because you tell yourself you love it, but then sometimes it can be really too much, and you can end up walking away from every practice feeling really depressed. And what happens when you get depressed? You get worse. So you can practice, but you can feel you get worse, and then you need to practice more to pick up the slack, and then it gets worse and worse and worse, and you start retaining bad habits, and then it's just we've seen, all of us again on the road, we've seen a lot of people fall into sort of massive moods of depression or all kinds of stuff. It can, if you're touring on this level that's just before really big, it can be it can get really bleak sometimes. But anyway, the main thing is to I think take breaks if you're able to, and to really make to really ask yourself, am I enjoying this? If you're not, then just stop for the day, really stop for the day or stop for the week, just come back when you're actually fresh and ready to go, because sometimes if you're in a really bad mood, you have those practice sessions that go amazing, and you walk out of there you're 10 feet tall. That's amazing when that happens, right? That's the other side of it. That's the practice session that reminds you why you really want to do this stuff. But I know quite a lot of people. A good friend of ours, he's practicing really hard but getting worse quite often because he's super stressed about it, and he's not having any fun. And I know quite a lot of musicians on tour. And you go onto the bus and say, "Hey man, how you doing?" And they all look like they're having the worst time, right? You would be surprised at how many bands really don't want to be there, and it creeps up on you. So I think it's really important to check, with yourself, am I really enjoying this? Because if you're not, then it's a sign that probably you need to take a break, or you need to change something. That being said, when you are having a good time, it's the best fucking thing in the world, So I think just being honest with yourself is the best way to keep yourself in check, and not being afraid, especially when you've put so much effort and so much time into this thing, not being afraid to say to yourself, I'm not actually having fun right now. And then you can do something about it. But most people won't. Are you having fun? Yeah. And I think the key to sort of well-being on tour and well-being as a professional is being honest with yourself about that. Because the other thing is, if you're not having a good time on stage, people will notice. The audience aren't idiots. Mm-hmm. See? I mean, you are, yeah. I actually thought you were doing a bit.
I am an idiot, and I also have a question. Was there a moment when you're younger playing where you just a breaking point where you saw something or something inspired you, where you had a vision that this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to play drums.
Actually, no.
It was professionally.
I got like I got into like the school band really young, and the guitarist of this band, his dad was like just had some friends who ran like local pubs and stuff. So we ended up playing in pubs when I was like 13, and I knew immediately, okay, that was super fun. I played like shit.
Yeah, but so playing live was what, like
playing, just me playing live was the first. That was when I said to myself, I definitely want to do this thing, like for sure. And my dad was like, sure you do, and didn't believe me, and he's regretting that now. I mean, he's regretting because he would have stamped it out if he. He was like, yeah, sure, okay, yeah, I suppose we can buy you a drum kit. And then that's the next 7 years of their lives ruined. It started there. And then, I was taken to, once my parents did realise that I was actually quite serious about this, then, they would take me to not to metal gigs, but to jazz gigs or and stuff. And they let me go to London when I was like 15. On my own to go and see like Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse and stuff. They would let me go on my own to those kind of gigs, which is pretty chill for parents. Like, I mean, in the draconian days of the early 2000s, that was quite a big deal. No mobile phones or nothing like that. So I think the first time I remember being like really, really, really inspired by a live gig was probably Nils Fjellstrom when he was playing with Aeon still back in the days, and Cannibal Corpse. Yeah, like, I mean, he's playing great now, but nothing like back then. It was just like, it's nothing like I've ever seen. Like, and the kid's set up like left-handed. It's like a super weird setup, and I was confused at first because he's got X hats as well, so I couldn't tell if he was left-handed or right-handed, and just blasting like an absolute maniac. The Aeon stuff is super tech, especially the stuff that he was doing. It was just like, and then Cannibal Corpse came on afterwards, and they were good, but they weren't like they were objectively better, but they just didn't have that raw energy coming off the stage like this young kid with everything to prove that was Nils back then. And then I saw Flo supporting with Cryptopsy support Celtic Frost. So I saw the fastest band in the world support one of the slowest bands in the world. So Celtic Frost were like extra slow. They were slow with a side of glacial. They were so slow after that. But yeah, Flo's another like amazing one. He's so fluid on the kit. Like, if you watch him play, like it's almost like no effort. When he's like rolling around, that's so cool. But the first instance of being inspired was actually just being able to get up and do it. Having the adrenaline rush, and learning not really to not be afraid of going up on stage and playing drums. Then it made the next years a lot easier. So yeah. Any more? Yeah.
Do you still get nervous before playing like a bigger show?
Oh yeah.
I guess like how do you I guess question to all you guys, like how do you deal with nerves sometimes before a show? Because I'll play a show sometimes in the first song I'm hitting way too hard and it was a fast song, and then like the second song my hands are already dead and I'm like, crap, dude, I was too excited and now I'm suffering because of it.
Nerves are part of the fun. It's natural. If you're not getting nervous anymore, it means something's wrong. Yeah. I think because it might not be every day that you get nervous, like properly nervous. Mm-hmm. But you want the gig to go well. That's natural. The main thing is you're talking about like a rush of adrenaline at the beginning of the set. Yeah, that's what's making you just go hell for leather at the beginning. Yeah. Yeah, you do. You do need to keep that under control, because I've done the same thing. I've gone like the first two songs like blasting like this, and then by the end of the set I'm just like, like just limping through. And breathing is probably what I would suggest for that. Just like taking a couple of deep breaths before. I'm actually that patronising. I just taught you how to breathe.
No, no.
But you know, but really, you know, like count to 4, breathe out, count to 4. You know, time in your brain, time is moving like so quick. But just take an extra couple of seconds to breathe. Make sure you drink water. All the classic stuff, and you know, sometimes before a really big show, I might spend lie down for 20 minutes and just focus on my breathing a little bit. Not anything quite as hippie as meditation, but meditation adjacent stuff.
Yeah.
You know, but just keeping my heart rate low, and just, you know, and maybe like thinking about the songs a little bit, running sections of the songs in my head, and that seems to be enough to kind of keep things under control. But yeah, I mean, the first shows with my first professional gigs, yeah, my brain was running wild, you know. And it's an experience thing, I think. You'll discover a routine that works for you, you know. Like I always have like a little nap, a coffee, and some electrolytes before the show, and then once I've gone through that routine, I immediately feel better. There's nothing in that routine that actually makes me feel better. It's just the psychosomatic thing. So I don't know. You have your little routine.
Yeah, I always have to like just go get some quiet time by myself, or I'll like walk a lap around. Just get away from people. Sometimes you're in the venue, you get all tensed up. You see other. Sometimes it's good to be in that energy, but if you feel yourself getting nervous and hot, I always just go outside away from the show and then walk in when you need to play.
Do you have any weird compulsions before the show? Like I have to brush my teeth before.
That's funny. That's funny when you say that, because I'll put a mint sometimes. Whenever I just gotta It's
no, I have to brush my teeth before a show.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I've got certain things like certain socks I'll wear and shit like that. So, and if I'm not wearing them, then I don't feel as comfortable as if. You know, so if you want to cure all problems with adrenaline, get a good pair of socks
and brush your teeth.
Today,
walk around the venue.
Today I've got gooses.
Oh yeah.
All right.
I can't drum in any other shoes also.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. That's these geese right here are like +5 feet. Yeah.
New shoes are the worst.
I mean, the more you play live, the more you pick up or certainly for me, the more I've picked up these strange little things, you know, and you know, whatever, it kind of works. You know, with Belphegor, I'll have a shot of whiskey before the show with Helmet, and then go right on, and you know, that's become our routine, you know, and it's just nice. I don't do it in any other band, but there, why not? Yeah. Did it one time, it worked, so we just do it every time, and it's become a little ritual, and those little rituals are really important, I think. They really help you deal with, or they certainly really help me deal with nerves and things like that. Because they bring you back down to earth a little bit. If you're freaking out because you cannot find your cat socks, there's nothing more human, you know, it puts everything, you suddenly forget about whatever it is, the festival crowd over there. You're just but I can't find my fucking cat socks. You know, and you know, it's nice to have a human problem for a second. I think it's that I find helps really a lot. Okay. Anybody else? Cool. Right, I've been sitting back here for quite a while. I think I've been chatting for really a long time. So yeah, maybe I'll play one more, and then we can all hang out and everything for a bit. I think we're supposed to hang. I think we're supposed to stop at
Got 20 minutes.
Oh yeah. Oh okay, fine. I'll play one more, and on the subject of little rituals that cure our nerves. If you turn up the click track now, I'll play you I'll play you the first song of the set, and on the first song of the set, we always have a little noise on the click channel that firstly tells us that the click is working before we start. It tells us that the show is going, and You know, like it's just kind of like a little funny thing that relaxes all of us. You know, like a little joke that makes us laugh, and that really, again, that's something that just brings you back down to earth and kind of makes you feel a bit more like centered and a bit more human. You know, so you got your click tracks up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh, did everybody get something out of that? Really? Yeah. Did.
Perfect. Awesome.
Hopefully it wasn't too boring and I didn't go off on too many tangents about cat socks, but they're really important.
No, that was sick.
Cool.
Great, man. I have another question.
Go for it.
When you're playing parts by other drummers, how do you approach that?
Start off by learning it as close as I can to the original. And then, and only then, you know, I can put, like with Decap, it's a bit more collaborative, you know, and Vitek sadly is no longer alive, so it's a different thing, especially when we're doing a Nihility tour. And the Nihility songs have to be pretty much as close as they can be. And they were, you know, like, when we first started doing these, Vog was even saying things like, you know, like, oh, actually, you know, like, not like, don't blast, you know, like that on the snare, but like, because that's what Vitek was doing, you know, or little bits like that, you know, like, that don't come through on the record, but like, you know, so that is a special case. But as a general rule, I still try and learn everything as close as I can to the original, and probably like you would do with the Megadeth stuff, right? And you probably have done with the Incantation, right? You've got as close as you physically can.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you jam it out with the band. And if you want, like, there are some points where maybe you can put your spin on things, but if they don't like it, you better go back to the original. Like, so don't only learn your version. Like, make sure that you've got, make sure that you can, you know, revert back to the original if it's so required, and you know, don't skimp out on learning the original. Oh no, we've run out of time.
Would you ask whoever's hiring you, like, hey, can I throw some of myself in?
Sometimes it's like they normally make it clear.
Yeah.
You know, when like I've never had like a proper conversation about it. Like I've never been sat down like, you know, like don't do that, you know, don't do this or whatever. But sometimes people have got a really specific way that they want the drums to be. Yeah. Sometimes they take, quite often as my name is growing more. Right, so it's, you know, as my name is growing,
more, you mean, like, as you
as my name is growing, they're more content to let me do my thing. They pick me because they like the way that I play. So that's all. It's always really nice when that happens,
of course.
But you know, I think it's always a band by band or even song by song basis. You know. Like after I've been in the band, like after I've been in Vader for 10 years, I felt like I had a lot more, you know, I had license to do shit that I would never have done on my first gig, you know, because you play together, like they know, like, and you've made those songs your own over time, you know, like.
You proved yourself, you have to.
Yeah, well, and also, you know, like I felt like at that time, you know, with like Doc's material, for example, no one knew Doc's material better than me at that point, you know, at that point.
Right.
I was like, you know what, like, I can get away with this here. You know, I can get, you know, it's, you do kind of earn a bit of license, like if you've been in the band for a long time, like with Incantation right now, you surely have infinitely more scope than you would have done at the beginning, and you've been with Megadeth now for 8 years. I'm assuming you have a bit more.
Yeah.
You have a bit more good. You earn that. You earn your place. You sort of earn the right to do those things. Over time, but then in other sessions they might just be like, do whatever you want, you know, just go nuts, like I don't care, you know, and that's always great. But then when someone goes, oh, you know, just go nuts and do whatever you want, I can't think of anything. I'm just like,
I was gonna say, because it can be tricky when you're constrained for a while, you know, to playing certain things a certain way. You can forget some of your isms that you have. Your own thing, right?
You can do.
You can become the other drummer more, like.
It's a way. Get in their head. It's a trick.
You can. You certainly can. You like. I never felt like I've lost any aspect of my playing. Like I definitely, like I do definitely feel like a shift in my playing from like I'm definitely now like the drummer of Decap rather than the drummer of Vader. You know, like with Vader, Vader had a lot more. You know, like a lot more moments for sort of Lombardo style Lombardo style things, and like, bands like Slayer are a huge influence for Decap as well. But Vader is basically like Slayer plus in my it's like Slayer but faster.
Yeah.
Like
Slayer with blood.
It pretty much is, and I was pretty much guaranteed the job when Pete asked me one time who my favourite drummer was, or one of my favourite drummers, and I just said Lombardo straight up. It was like, okay, I'm going to get a phone call soon. So I watched some old Vader videos back every now and then. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot I could do. Like, I forgot about that, Phil. I need to find a new place for it, or like those little things. You do forget them over time. But I would say that's more an age thing than me getting too far into another drummer's head or something. Yeah. But it is nice to go back and revisit. It's cool to revisit some things, like some previous things, because there might be things that like were a good idea that you didn't play very well. You're like, oh, I can actually do that now. I thought I could do it when I was 25, but now I'm 35. I can do it. Right. So it is nice to go back and check some older things that you may have recorded and see. But like the just learn the parts. That's the golden rule for any session is learn the parts, and then you can figure out some new things to do if the situation requires it. But as long as you're a pro and learn everything you're supposed to, then you'll do fine.
Follow-up question. Have you had sessions where there's no drums, like it's like here's the songs on guitar and whatever?
Yes, and I hate it.
You hate it?
I hate it
really?
So much. Because like I had one recently that was okay, because I work quite often with Scott Atkins, the producer for Cradle of Filth. He works with Matt. When Matt does Machine Head stuff in the UK, he does it with Scott.
Oh, okay, so that's where he's recording.
I think he does the demos there. I don't know.
Gotcha.
I don't know exactly how it works, but I know that he records with Scott. And so I'm quite happy to go to someone like that, someone that I trust a lot, with no parts, with like nothing prepared, because then you have a person to bounce ideas off. You've got someone in the control room going, that's not great, no, that's the one, do that. And then you come out with something that you didn't expect, and you normally discover ideas that you would never have in a million years thought you would come up with, So that's when it works really well. But if you're on your own and you have no one to give you any sort of reference point, then you're kind of you're not really blind, you're deaf, but you're stuck, because I find that I end up playing it really safe if I do that kind of stuff. I much prefer to have like some really basic drums that I can completely ignore. Do you know what I mean? Like so many times I've got something with drums, it's like, oh, it's got to be like this, and I'll just delete everything and go fresh, and I'll come up with like some more wildly creative stuff than if I've got no idea. Because like if there's a blast or something, I'll check how it sounds with maybe like downbeat and double kick and like because maybe even change it to a slow beat, and then suddenly the riff is just like massively heavy, But I find it easier to ignore what someone else has written than to come up with a cool idea myself.
But it's good to have at least like the guitarist that wrote he heard that this is where he heard the blast beat, so you understand.
Yeah. I mean,
at least you know that, and then you can put your
communication is the one. Like music is collaborative, unless you're doing a complete solo project by yourself. But as a general rule, making music is a collaborative enterprise, and with all collaborative enterprises, the more you communicate, the smoother it's going to be. So yeah, like I don't like being given only guitars, because for me it's not enough of an outline. I really like to hear what other people are imagining, and then I can just run with it and go nuts and kind of more often than not, as I say, completely ignore whatever it is they've programmed. But the main thing is making sure that everybody is happy with the final performance and the final, the decisions that have been made to make the song as good as it can be. Everybody agrees are the right ones, or at least a consensus. You can't get everybody to agree on everything all the time, but you want everybody to walk away happy, like not just as a professional, but because you're making music and that's what's supposed to happen. Yeah. Cool.
Do you want to do one more, or are you done? That's up to you.
Oh, all right then.
Yeah, okay, that's the last one.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
I'll do an encore.
I'm the total opposite in terms of session work. I was like, don't give me anything.
Yeah.
Like, do you want the guitar player file? No. Just give me MP3. I'm good to go.
I like both.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good to just get everything delivered.
Can I have a request? Your childhood favorite? I'm sure you know it.
If it's what I think you're going to say, I will leap across this room and steal it.
It is what it is. It's, you know what I'm gonna ask for.
Are you going to ask for Spheres?
Yeah.
It's like, the thing is though, like, because I've thought about, like, it's
D69.
I haven't got it. I haven't got backing tracks for that one.
You got how much song?
Also no. I can play it a cappella, but I also don't know if I remember it. Let's see what's on the old files here. Oh, I know which one I'm going to do. It's not Spheres. I have considered.
I feel like you're gonna throw something.
I'm not. Like, Spheres is cool for like a lesson because it's all about sitting at a medium tempo. The problem is that's the song, pretty much.
Because of technically what the song is, because of the nostalgia. Because
Yeah.
as a kid, I remember myself, like,
You know what? For me, the guitar is the star of that show. Rather than So I'm gonna. But I'll do something from that album that's a bit more involved drum-wise.
Okay.
It's not going to make any sense to you without headphones, but never mind.
Yeah, I whenever it's there's a headphone here. Because I was leaving them for everybody that's attending.
The 1 foot last for that long was wild. Thank you so much, man.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this video. If you liked something about the video, make sure to mention that in the comment section down below. And also, let us know who are your favorite drummers and who you would like us to feature in our next clinic. If you've learned something from this video, make sure to hit the like button so more people can find us. Hit the subscribe button as well and the bell so you can keep up with our next events. To keep up with our latest updates, make sure to find us on Instagram and Facebook under Amarin Productions and hit us a follow so we can see you on the next one.